Ever feel like you're stuck at work? Like, you've got all this talent just kind of simmering beneath the surface,
Mm.
but it's not being fully utilized.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of untapped potential, it's more common than you might think. And it points to a fundamental disconnect in how we often approach, well, strengths in the workplace.
And that's what we're diving into today, right?
Yeah.
This idea of employee strengths at work. ESAW for short.
Kitschy, right.
Totally. But more than that, it's this whole fascinating concept, and there's actually some really compelling research on it. Like from this researcher, and get this name, Vikas Rai Bhatnagar, from the Management Development Institute in India,
He's done some groundbreaking work, Bhatnagar, really challenging the traditional way we think about strength.
which is usually, well, like, oh, she's a natural leader or he's a numbers guy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's sort of fixed mindset. But Bhatnagar's research points to something much more nuanced. It's not just about inherent talents, it's about context. Whether your work environment actually allows you to ease those strengths, he calls this potential deployment.
Okay, potential deployment. I like the sound of that already. So what does that look like in practice?
So picture this. You've got a brilliant writer. Words just flow out of them, but they're stuck in a data entry job. All that creativity stifled.
Oh, my heart breaks for that writer. Talk about a recipe for feeling unfulfilled.
Exactly. Or imagine a natural leader, someone who thrives on motivating and guiding others, but they're in a role with no team to lead, no opportunity to utilize those skills. It's like having a superpower you never get to use.
That is the perfect analogy. It's like you might know you have that strength, but it's dormant, you know?
Yeah,
And that's got to be so frustrating.
absolutely. And think about a time when you were in a role that really played to your strengths. What was that like?
Oh, man. I used to work on this project, and it involved a ton of research and analysis, which, honestly, I love that stuff. I get totally energized by digging into data, finding patterns.
Hmm.
And because I was using those strengths, the work just flowed like I was in the zone.
There you go, potential deployment in action. And that sense of flow, that feeling of being in the zone, it often goes hand in hand with what Bhatnagar calls person-job fit.
So how well your strengths actually align with the work you're doing,
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're challenged but not overwhelmed, where your skills are being both utilized and appreciated.
which actually reminds me of this friend of mine, super outgoing, loves connecting with people,
Mm.
but they were stuck in this job with like zero human interaction.
Yeah.
And they were miserable. It wasn't until they found a role that really let them use that natural charisma that they truly started to shine.
And that's a classic example of poor person job fit. It's not just about being good at something, it's about whether that something allows you to really tap into your strengths and thrive.
So finding that right fit, it's crucial. But how much of that is on the employee versus the organization? Like, where does the responsibility lie?
That's what's so insightful about Bhatnagar's framework, really. It acknowledges that it's not one-sided. I mean, yeah, we all have a responsibility to, figure out what we're good at and own those strengths, but organizations, they've got a huge part to play in creating an environment where those strengths can actually flourish.
So it's bigger than just find the right job and you'll be happy.
Yeah,
It's also about finding the right workplace, the right culture, the whole shebang.
precisely. And that leads us beautifully to the third factor in Bhatnagar's model, managerial sensitivity.
Okay, before we go there, can I just say I'm already bracing myself for the whole you need to be best friends with your boss cliche.
No, 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 not at all. It's not about being buddies or anything like that. It's more about imagine having a manager who actually gets you, sees your unique strengths, appreciates them, and then this is key, actively supports you in using them.
So not just, oh yeah, you're good at that, but actually giving you opportunities to shine, to really own those skills.
Now you're getting it. Think about a manager who's really strategic about delegating tasks. They give you projects that play to your strengths, that allow you to learn and grow. Maybe they even offer coaching or mentorship to help you really hone those skills. That's managerial sensitivity in action.
And I'm guessing the flip side is also true. A micromanager, someone who tries to force everyone into the same box, that's going to stifle even the most talented employee, right?
100%. And that kind of environment, it can really impact an employee's ability to, well, learn and adapt. Which brings us to Bhatnagar's fourth factor, prompt assimilation.
Prompt assimilation. Okay, that one sounds a little technical. What does that even mean?
Basically, it's about how quickly and how well you pick up new information at work, how you adapt to new challenges. But here's where it gets really interesting. Bhatnagar found a strong link between this and, you guessed it, whether you're actually using your strengths.
Hold on. So it's not just about being a quick learner in general. It's about how much faster and more effectively you learn when you're in a role that truly lets you flex those strength muscles.
You got it. Think about it when you're genuinely engaged in your work, when you're using your strengths, your brain's firing on all cylinders, right? You're more receptive to new information, you make connections more easily, you're more likely to come up with creative solutions.
It's like that flow state we talked about earlier. Everything just clicks.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about Bhatnagar's process here. Like, he didn't just rely on gut feeling or anecdotes, right? He developed an actual scientifically validated scale to measure ESAW.
That's right. He wanted a way to measure these 5 factors in a reliable way in a real-world setting. So he brought in HR professionals, management students, used some pretty rigorous statistical analysis. The ESAW scale is legit.
That's impressive, like a real commitment to bring some scientific rigor to a topic that a lot of people might dismiss as, fluffy or whatever.
Right.
But okay, back to prompt assimilation for a sec. Can you give me an example? Like, how does that actually play out in the real world?
Okay, so let's say you've got 2 employees, both smart, both capable. One of them is in a role that really plays to their strengths, the other not so much. Now, let's say they both have to learn this new software program for work. The employee whose strengths are being utilized, they're probably going to pick it up faster, feel more confident using it, maybe even find innovative ways to incorporate it into their workflow.
Makes sense. They're already in that groove, so their brain's primed for that kind of learning.
Right. Whereas the other employee, the one who's not really utilizing their strengths, they might struggle, get frustrated, take longer to get up to speed.
Wow. Okay, that's a really powerful illustration, and it highlights just how important it is for both the employee and the organization to be mindful of those strengths to create that kind of synergy.
100%, because ultimately it's about creating an environment where people feel empowered, engaged, and, yeah, dare I say it, joyful.
Oh.
Which brings us to Bhatnagar's 5th and final factor.
Joy. Joy. It does feel like kind of a holy grail, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To actually find joy in your work.
It shouldn't be a holy grail, though, right? And that's kind of Bhatnagar's point. When people are actually tapping into their strengths, when they're doing work that feels meaningful, joy is often a natural byproduct.
So it's not about being like deliriously happy all the time. It's more about that deep sense of satisfaction, knowing you're using your skills to their fullest potential, making a real contribution.
You nailed it. It's that feeling of alignment, of being connected to your purpose.
And I can only imagine the ripple effect that has. Like when employees are genuinely joyful and engaged at work, that's got to impact the whole workplace, right?
No doubt. It's contagious, that kind of energy. You see increased productivity, people get more creative. The whole vibe just becomes more positive and collaborative.
It all comes back to Bottinger's ESAW model, right? Those 5 factors we've been diving into.
Exactly. Potential deployment, person-job fit, managerial sensitivity, prompt assimilation, and of course, joy. He's really created this incredible framework for understanding how these pieces all fit together.
And I love how it's backed by solid research. Like, he's not just saying, oh, strengths are good, be happy. He's showing us, with data, why this stuff matters and what a truly strengths-based workplace could look like.
And the best part is, it's not just theoretical, this framework. It's packed with practical guidance for both individuals and organizations.
Totally. It's like, okay, it's not all on the employee to just magically find happiness at work, right? Companies have to create a culture that supports ESAW, that helps their people thrive.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's something for all of us to consider. I mean, whether you're a CEO, a manager, just starting out in your career, ask yourself, what's one thing I can do, even a small thing, to cultivate a more strengths-based approach in my own work life?
That is such a powerful takeaway. And honestly, this whole conversation, it's been so insightful, so thought-provoking, really gives us a lot to reflect on. Concrete actions we can take to unlock our potential, find that sense of fulfillment, and yes, even joy at work. So thank you. Thank you for walking us through Bottinger's research today.
The pleasure was all mine, truly. It's always inspiring to see how these ideas can empower people and hopefully transform workplaces for the better.